As I was here yesterday hearing some of the discussion, I just want to tie some of Kevin's comments back to some of what we heard, because as you listen to him talk about transparency, I have to believe you thought about the discussions we had yesterday about how to use data, how to use real information out to your consumers, because you don't have a choice. Kevin talked about the incredible amount of information that we get these days. When you were talking about the cows, I saw a demonstration, this was about 2-3 years ago, from the Scottish Lamb Foundation, something like that. And they now put a GPS unit inside the ear of a little sheep. And so when you are buying lamb, you can actually track that sheep that you're eating the lamb chop, where he grazed. You know, knowledge is going to change us on this. I got to do a project about a year ago with one of the guys who wrote the book Green to Gold, which is about how to make environmentalism profitable. And he said in some respects, local is actually a bad way to go. Because if you plant a crop locally that requires too much fertilizer, too much water, where in another part of the world, it is a much more gentle crop to the environment. So I think the issue is going to be explaining why, if I'm eating something from New Zealand, that actually may have been the best way to do it.
Well, and that actually scares people a lot, is that because you start to get into these things, and you know, there are no simple answers. Right? This, I mean, yes, the lamb, if they'd gotten the lamb from New Zealand, somehow it might have been environmentally better than getting it 20 minutes down the road for whatever reason. But it also may not be. Nothing is simple, and it's one of the reasons that people run away from this, the whole transparency issue, because it isn't simple. But I always think that one of the reasons you've got to do it, and you just provide as much information as possible, you make it as usable as possible, and you allow people to make their own decisions too. I mean, I think that you have to start treating customers as if they're smart, as opposed to as if they're stupid. Well, because customers are going to be smarter than ever. And we were talking before, you know, it's interesting. You know, the Japanese example, all that Japanese stuff I showed you? It's fascinating how the impact that it has on consumers. Because when I was there and I asked those guys, I said, well, you know, what percentage of your customers use these systems? They said 5%. 5%. And I said, you gotta be kidding. 5%? How can you invest all this money in a system that only, a transparency system that only 5% of your customers use? And they looked at me and said, they shook their heads. Said, Kevin, you don't get it. I hear that a lot. And they said, at home, in the office, you know. And what happened, they said, the fact of the matter is that's a good thing. Only 5% of our customers use these systems. That means that 95% of our customers trust us. They trust us because we are completely transparent and make the information available. We'd be happy if only 1% of our customers use the system. Because information, it doesn't necessarily mean everybody has to use it, but you have to make it available because it creates a level of trust that in the long run serves the business.
Well, you would have loved some of the stuff they were talking about yesterday, and we won't revisit it as a group for you, but even with the Nutrigen program, the ability for the customer to know you're willing to give the recipe. You're willing to talk about the ingredients, because let's be honest, most moms shopping at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night and they've got a million things on their plate. It may be carpools, it may be getting dinner on the table, work just took 9 hours. All right, they may not want to know the exact recipe that you used, but knowing that the recipe is there, that's a game changer. And so the notion of being able to download this information is going to come fast to them, and they're going to read about it happening in Japan. But if you think about how fast scanning really did go from the test, it was 1975, the first item gets scanned. It's by 1990 we're almost ubiquitous on scanning. And it provided so many secondary benefits that no one saw. Going to better barcodes, whether they're 2D, and we keep experimenting, the smudge, the data bar, for the supply chain, for all kinds of food safety issues. There are so many bits of information that we can carry on. I don't know that we're ever going to go all the way to RFID. You know, RFID has been talked about for a long time. How long ago did that commercial run that IBM had where the guy walks through a supermarket putting stuff in his pockets and he looks kind of like a shady character, and on the way out, security guard said, "Excuse me, sir, your receipt?" That's how RFID works. You have a speed pass for tolls. You know how RFID works. I don't know that we're going to get there, because the cost of an RFID chip still cannot get to the level that you can put it on a pack of gum, or you can put it, you know, even on a $2 item in a supermarket and just flood these into the market.